Who was Confucius? You might think of him as just some ancient Chinese philosopher with a long beard, but what if I told you that his ideas, crafted over 2,500 years ago, still shape the way millions of people think, act, and govern today? Stick around, because in the next few minutes we're diving into the wisdom, the controversies, and the surprising relevance of Confucius and his philosophy. Confucius, or Confucius, lived from 551 to 479 BCE during a period in China known as the Spring and Autumn period, a time of political chaos, constant wars between states, and moral confusion. Imagine living in a world where governments were unstable, rulers were often cruel, and society seemed to be falling apart. Sounds stressful, right? Well, Confucius had a plan to fix it, and it all started with one radical idea: moral self-cultivation. Confucius believed that society could only be harmonious if individuals worked on becoming better people, ethically and morally. He wasn't interested in flashy laws or punishments alone. He wanted people to embody virtue. The key concepts he taught can be boiled down into a few core ideas: Ren, Li, Xiao, and Junzi. Let's unpack them. First up, Ren. Ren is often translated as benevolence or humanness. It's the idea that you should care for others genuinely and act with kindness. Confucius believed that if people practiced Ren, society would naturally improve. Think of it as a moral superpower. You don't need a sword or a throne. Your empathy alone can change the world. Next is Li, which can be thought of as ritual, etiquette, or proper conduct. Now don't roll your eyes thinking this is all about bowing 100 times or memorizing ancient rules. Li is about respect for family, community, and traditions. By observing Li, people create social harmony and trust. Imagine a society where everyone treated each other with just a tiny bit more respect. That's what Confucius was aiming for. Then we have Xiao, or filial piety. This is about honoring your parents and ancestors. In Confucian thought, the family is the cornerstone of society. If you can learn to care for and respect your parents, you're well on your way to being a moral person and a responsible citizen. And finally, Junzi, often translated as the noble person or gentleman. This is the person who embodies all these virtues: Ren, Li, Xiao, and acts ethically in all aspects of life. But here's the catch. Confucius didn't believe nobility came from birth or wealth. It came from character. You could be poor, but if you are virtuous, you are noble in Confucius's eyes. And that's surprisingly modern, right? A reminder that integrity matters more than titles. Now, here's a fun fact. Confucius wasn't a ruler, a king, or even a powerful man. He was primarily a teacher. He traveled across ancient China trying to advise rulers and spread his ideas, but most of the time, he was ignored or dismissed. Sounds frustrating, right? Yet his teachings were so compelling that they were written down by his disciples in a collection called the Analects, short sayings and conversations that are still studied today. What's fascinating about Confucius is that his philosophy isn't about abstract ideas in a dusty textbook. It's practical. He believed that if everyone worked on themselves, if rulers were just, officials were competent, and families cared for each other, society would naturally become orderly and harmonious. But wait, there's more. Confucius's ideas weren't just about personal virtue, they had political implications. He taught that rulers should lead by moral example, not by fear or force. He believed that a government is strongest when its leaders are virtuous, and its citizens respect those leaders because of their integrity, not because of intimidation. This principle influenced Chinese dynasties for centuries. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds nice, but isn't it a bit rigid? Well, yes and no. Confucianism has sometimes been criticized for reinforcing hierarchy and tradition too strongly. For example, some argue that filial piety and strict social roles could limit personal freedom, especially for women in historical contexts. But here's the thing. The core of Confucius's teaching, self-improvement, respect, and empathy, is timeless and adaptable. In fact, Confucian philosophy is surprisingly relevant today. Think about leadership in business, politics, or even online communities. Leaders who inspire respect and act ethically are far more effective than those who rule through fear. And on a personal level, practicing kindness, respecting traditions, and caring for family and community can make life more meaningful. whether you're in Beijing, Boston, or Buenos Aires. So, why should we care about Confucius now? Because at its heart, Confucianism is about making the world a better place one person at a time. It's a philosophy of action, not just thought, and it reminds us that change starts with ourselves. Want a kinder society? Be kind. Want a more ethical world? Lead with integrity. Alright, let's wrap it up with a few powerful takeaways from Confucius. First, moral virtue matters more than wealth or power. Second, respect and proper conduct create harmony. Third, family and community are the foundation of society. And lastly, lead by example, not by fear. Confucius might have lived over 2,500 years ago, but, his ideas still challenge us today. How do we live well? How do we treat others? And how can we be the best versions of ourselves? The answers might actually be simpler than you think. Act with kindness, respect tradition, care for family, and never stop improving yourself. So, next time you're scrolling through your feed, stuck in traffic, or dealing with a difficult colleague, just remember Confucius. The real power isn't in wealth, likes, or authority. It's in how you live, how you treat others, and the example you set. That's philosophy you can take to the bank. Or at least to dinner with your parents. If you enjoyed this dive into Confucius and want more videos exploring the world's most fascinating philosophers, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and let us know in the comments. What ancient wisdom do you live by today?